Music and film shape culture in ways few other art forms can. But if bands were movies, which ones would they be? Who's the blockbuster juggernaut? Who's the indie darling? And who's the predictable comfort watch that somehow never goes away? Today we are pairing 8 iconic bands with their perfect cinematic counterparts based on their style, legacy, and cultural impact. So let's get into it. 7. The Beatles and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Some comparisons write themselves. The Beatles didn't just change music, they redefined it. Just like the MCU, they dominated the industry, influenced everyone who came after, and went through distinct phases along the way. Their early Beatlemania era, that's phase 1, light-hearted, wildly successful, and setting the stage for what's to come. Sgt. Pepper's and the White Album, that's Infinity War, a bold, experimental evolution that pushed boundaries. Even after they stopped making music together, their presence in pop culture never faded. Much like Marvel's continued dominance, even when fans argue that it's not the same anymore. And let's be real, Paul McCartney, still touring in his 80s, is basically Marvel announcing Spider Man 7. We all know it's happening, and we'll probably still buy a ticket. 6. The Rolling Stones and Mad Max Fury Road. Few things in pop culture feel truly indestructible, but the Rolling Stones and Mad Max Fury Road fit that bill perfectly. Both are raw, relentless, and somehow still going decades after anyone expected them to. Mick Jagger remains a high energy, chaotic frontman, much like George Miller's relentless, no holds barred action sequences. Keith Richards, he is basically a real life Mad Max, surviving an apocalyptic level of self destruction with no explanation as to how. And just like the Mad Max franchise as a whole, the Rolling Stones prove that being old doesn't mean being outdated. Even after 60 years, they're still out there, proving that pure adrenaline never really ages. 5. Queen and Moulin Rouge. If there's one thing Queen and Moulin Rouge have in common, is that they never do subtle. Both are grand, theatrical, and designed to be experienced at full volume. Freddie Mercury didn't just sing, he performed. Every Queen song is a spectacle, much like how Moulin Rouge isn't just a film, it's a sensory overload. The soundtracks also share a similar everything and the kitchen sink approach. Queen blended opera, rock, and ballads into one song, Bohemian Rhapsody, while the film mashed together Elton John, Nirvana, and Madonna into a single scene. And let's be honest, if Queen had written the soundtrack for this film, we'd probably all agree it was even better. 4. Nirvana and Fight Club. Nirvana and Fight Club share one major common thing. They were never meant to be idealized the way they were. Both were raw, cynical, and deeply personal reflections of frustration, but they ended up being misunderstood by the very people that resonated with it. Kurt Cobain wrote about feeling lost in the machine, only for Nirvana to become one of the biggest bands on the planet. Meanwhile, Fight Club was a satire on toxic masculinity that somehow got turned into a blueprint for alpha male YouTube channels. If Cobain were alive today, he'd probably hate seeing $500 vintage Nirvana shirts in high end stores. Just like Fight Club's author, Chuck Palahniuk, still cringes every time someone misquotes the first rule of Fight Club in a business seminar. 3. Radiohead and A24 films. There's a certain type of person who swears that Radiohead and A24 films are life changing. And if you don't get it, you just don't understand art, man. Radiohead is the kid A of music, just like A24 is the everything, everywhere, all at once of film. Strange, experimental, and occasionally requiring a deep Reddit dive to fully appreciate it. Both are acclaimed, but also accused of being a little too artsy for their own good. Tom York and A24 also refuse to give you what you expect. Think you're getting an indie rock album? Nope, here's Amnesiac, full of eerie electronic sound loops. Expecting a standard horror film? Sorry, here's The Lighthouse, where Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson yell at each other for 2 hours. And if you've ever met a die-hard Radiohead fan, you know they're basically A24 film buffs. They'll tell you that OK Computer changed music forever while drinking oat milk in a repurposed bookstore cafe. 2. Arctic Monkeys and the Social Network. Some artists capture the zeitgeist so perfectly that they feel like a defining voice of their era. Arctic Monkeys did it with music. The Social Network did it with film. Both are razor sharp, effortlessly cool, and just a little bit detached. Alex Turner's lyrics are like Aaron Sorkin's dialogue, fast, clever, and so self aware that they almost sound too perfect. Just like how the social network nailed the vibe of an entire digital generation, Arctic Monkeys' early albums felt like a soundtrack to mid 2000s youth culture. Then they reinvented themselves with AM, becoming the mature, moodier version of themselves. Kind of like how Jesse Eisenberg's Mark Zuckerberg goes from awkward college kid to ruthless billionaire. And let's be honest, Arctic Monkey fans and the social network fans probably share the same taste in playlists, clothes, and overpriced coffee shops. 1. Maroon 5 and every generic rom com ever. Maroon 5 is the movie equivalent of safe romantic comedy. Predictable, accessible, and always there when you need something easy to consume. Their early work, Songs About Jane, had some genuine heart, kind of like how 10 Things I Hate About You actually holds up. But as time went on, they became formula driven, algorithm friendly hit machines. Every Maroon 5 song sounds engineered to play in a shopping mall. Just like every rom com feels designed to be pleasant background noise while you fold laundry. Adam Levine, he's the Ryan Reynolds of pop music. Charming, constantly successful, but rarely taking risks. And just like how Netflix keeps pumping out rom coms whether we ask for them or not, Maroon 5 keeps appearing at Super Bowls and weddings across the world, even when no one remembers asking for them. Bonus: Coldplay and Christopher Nolan films. I messed up. I had originally planned to cover 7 bands and their cinematic equivalents. That was the whole premise. 7 bands, a nice, clean list. But then in the introduction of this video, I made a horrific mistake of saying we'd be looking at 8. Now at this point, I had two options. I could either go back and re-record the intro like a professional, or I could pretend this was always part of the plan and throw in a bonus band. And since this channel has hit 1,000 subscribers, I figured, why not? Consider this a celebration of both my inability to count and the milestone itself. Coldplay is the Christopher Nolan of music. Big, ambitious, and occasionally a little too self serious, but undeniably effective. Just like Christopher Nolan's Memento, they started small with their album Parachutes, then went massive with Viva La Vida, just like Inception. Their music aims for emotion on a grand scale, just like how Nolan's films always feel huge. Even their critics admit that they know how to hit you in the feels. Whether it's Fix You making people cry at concerts, or Nolan's Interstellar making grown men weep over Matthew McConaughey watching his kids age through a time dilation video message. And yes, some people think Coldplay is a bit pretentious, but much like Nolan's films, their impact is undeniable. So there you have it, 8 bands and the cinematic counterparts. Now before I make any more mistakes, I'll wrap this up. Like, subscribe, and let me know which band slash director or film comparisons you'd like me to make, or if you just want to tell me I was completely wrong about all of them. Thank you.